Hello all, and thanks for watching. Well, I'm actually a bit nervous because this will be my first unboxing video. It will be on Playing to Win, a strategy framework developed by Roger L. Martin. He's one of my favorite authors on business, strategy. The framework is documented in a book written by Roger L. Martin with A.G. Lafley. I actually bought the full box edition. Wait a second. Here, a full box. The question is, why did I buy Play to Win? And I have to say, I never bought any framework before. I also have no certifications or anything. So why do I do it? And disclaimer, of course, Procter & Gamble didn't pay me. Roger L. Martin didn't pay me. Nobody's seeing this video and the review I'm doing before, of course. But maybe you know about me that since years I do care a lot about the tragic state of strategy work in companies. And I might frame it a little bit exaggerated, just a little, that my view on strategy is that 90% of the sane people that should be involved aren't, and 90% of the people that are involved are insane. Well, sorry. Or at least they're doing it wrong. And by doing it wrong, I mean that the general view is that only the smartest and the best in the company are allowed to work on strategy, if at all. And that leads to strategy being something really sacred and majestic and mythical. And as the most expensive people in the company, which might be the better description, take care of it, when they come to a conclusion and a plan, it must be right. And if they're not right, the sunk cost would be too high anyways to change course. So anyways, the strategy will become the plan. Now the plan will become the goal and not the actual strategic outcome will be in sight anymore. Even worse, as the process was so expensive, criticism will not be that welcome. So my theory is that a lot of that is based in the history of strategy consulting, which has a business intent of doing it wrong. I don't know, and I don't have to mention names, but how strategy is often first-hand experienced in companies is by aliens or grasshoppers flooding the meetings and doing interviews. And basically the trick they pull off is that they sell a magic process. And if you don't know how magic works, it's the following. The first stage is the pledge, the introduction of something really ordinary. In this case, they just listen to what everybody in the company knows and says and utters at the coffee cooker anyways. They write it down. The second part of magic is the turn, a display of extraordinary capabilities. They turn that in some workshop, in some really, really exhausting evening work. They might make you feel that they're doing because they are hyper motivated about the future of your company and write it up into a consistent whole. Big win. Some people are, oh and ha, and finally it's clear. And others in the company are like, what the, really? The third step of any magic trick is the prestige, the surprising performance. It's like when, the rabbit is not only appearing somewhere out of the cylinder, but somewhere totally different in the room. In that case, it's like now with some amazing table research from the back office, they explain to you how everything that you always thought but didn't write up and didn't make explicit in the company actually is winning 100%, if only you did it right. To turn my anger into positive energy and outcome, I created a super simple wrapper around all of this to make strategy more inclusive. To get rid of the excluding bullshit bingo vocabulary, which is essential and 100% required for the magic trick to work. And I called this whole thing Markers, Options Work, or in German Marker, Optionen und Arbeit. And in the notes you can see posts to some resources. The working title of what I'm doing is doing strategy, or Strategie machen in German, and the claim is that strategy is not the plan, strategy is doing, and strategy belongs to us. Well, okay. On another level, I got into touch with the topic as working with core products of companies. Often there were sentences hanging in the air like, we don't have a strategy, the strategy changes all the time, we might have one, but no one knows it, or that there are 10 interpretations of the same strategy, or that it's just a vision, but it's too far away, or it's too close, it's not visionary enough, or it's just a plan, whatever. Anyways, my hope, of course, is that Playing to Win has something to say about all of this. And now let's see. Let's unbox the whole thing. Box. Huh. What do we have? Empty box. That's the content. Huh. Let's see what it is. That's the box. Oh my God, you know, my hands are already sweaty from all of this. I'm a little bit nervous. Was all of this in vain? Like all the cost behind it? There are cards for 5 concrete questions. Like, let's go through it. Also, there's a framework in it. So here's the cards. Here's a framework. And there's also a QR code for a book, obviously. So I'll download that later on and see what's going on. There's a framework on how to use the questions I uncovered. A method for reverse engineering to make choices with others and making sense of conflicting choices. A book, yeah, the canvas as a framework. Okay, let's look at the things in detail. That makes no sense anymore. So 5 questions. So what it says is that play to win comes from the angle of strategy being a set of deliberate choices being made. Okay, the first one is our winning aspiration. So the whole thing starts with the answer to the question of what a winning aspiration would be, what drives us, what motivates us, how do we seek success, and what is the thing in the world that we want to change. Makes a lot of sense. So that's like, in a way, where do we want to go? What's the whole thing about? Question number 2 here is where to play. In what part of the world, in which sector, of which market or business do we want to play? So I read a little bit from Roger L. Martin before, read a little, and he's a little bit critical of small market change. So what he wants to do is really define what the core market is. What he means by small market shares is a little bit the other way around than you might think. He means that you have to narrow down and make explicit where you want to play to the details so that you know that in this exact piece of the market you will dominate. So make it as fine pinpoint that you can dominate. So it's not about like you need to dominate any market or anything. It's really about like be specific enough so that you can actually dominate. You know, if it's just like 2% of the people, out of these 2% of people, you want to at least have 1.2% of as a market. Question number 3. Once we define that, the next question is how to win. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Like, what is the idea of how we win that specific market where we're playing? Once we define that, the question is what measures do we take to win? Do we go for deeper R&D and innovation? Do we buy another company? Do mergers and acquisitions? Do we win on quality? Whatever, like a million options. You see, that's a huge field of potential options to be narrowed down. Okay. Question number 4 is then, what capabilities are needed? Once we know basically how we want to win, we need to define what capabilities are missing to actually get there. As this is such an explicit question looking for answers, you see that Roger Martin is not a fan of optimization as a strategy, because if we wouldn't need new capabilities, it would just be like get better at what you're doing. So everything as is, just better. So he's looking for new things to be done, and that means we need more and other capabilities. And then like, how do we pull all of this off in our company? That means what, and that's the last question of the 5, what management systems do we need to have in place? This refers to we need to have explicit goals derived from that question in place. How we implement that is depending on the challenge and culture of the company. How do we need to involve high-level stakeholders such as shareholders, for example? And I actually feel that the last one is one of the harder questions in abstract, but actually once you're living in a specific context, you know what you need and what you're missing. I just bought it. So that's just like my first day of contact. So if you want me to follow up with an example of how to do such a strategy and an example run through, they have actually one in the book I read, like from Ole of Olas in German. Leave a comment and I might do a follow up on how I'm doing with Play to Win and show an example. Oh yeah, this QR code for a book. I don't hold it into the camera for too long because then you might download the book. We just quickly download the book. So now I downloaded the book and here it is. I have it on my Kindle. Okay, so the whole thing comes with a canvas, which is kind of an embodiment of a framework. And that, they say, is for a reason. The thing is that you continuously work on these 5 questions. And while at the start you might work in this sequence 1 to 5, from winning aspirations down to what management systems are required. Over time, when you iterate over it, you sit in front of this canvas, maybe in a fixed cadence even, and a talk as well, and work on it based on the new insights you're getting and the research results that are coming in. So you simply turn to the questions at hand and refine, rather than go through the whole thing as a ritual from 1 to 5 or so. So, that's interesting. So it is an iterative process you go through all the time. And while I often hated canvases, the idea of a framework that you revisit and revise and do what feels right today makes a lot of sense. By the way, Matthew May explained this to me actually on the example of Play to Win. And based on this canvas and podcast once, if you want to hear more about this, link below. So the big idea here is, remember that strategy is an iterative process and you'll need to refine your winning aspiration in the context of the subsequent choices. Okay, and another close to final piece of the whole thing is it comes with a methodology called re-engineering. And this whole thing is meant as a remedy against the following symptoms. And I cite the book for a bit longer here. In a typical strategy process, participants seek to find the single right answer. Hint, hint, there's no single right answer. At some point, through the cloud of data, a few plausible strategic options emerge. Because there is intense pressure to be practical, creativity is tacitly discouraged throughout the option generation process. Problems with this traditional approach are numerous. First, it is expensive. The analysis itself tends to be scattershot and superficial because there's so much material to cover. Hard feelings tend to emerge as individuals advocate for one choice or another and feel marginalized if their option doesn't make the cut. Since the goal is for everyone to buy in, weak compromises are made instead of real hard choices and clarity. Creativity is discouraged. The pressure to converge on answer on the basis of existing data eliminates the possibilities that are off the mainstream path. Okay, so the countermeasure in this process is what they call re-engineering. And that is asking one simple question, which is, what has to be true for this strategy to be winning? And then you basically do an assumption mapping. The outcome is 2 buckets of assumptions. One is things we know that are true and our success depends on. And these are the things we basically have to assert in our work towards success and winning. The second bucket is things we would highly depend on, but don't know yet if they are true. So these are the things we need to further research on. And what's so cool for me in this method is that it totally goes away from rhetorics and people knowing the future better than you as usual, and all these politics in the room. If the group thinks we don't know, we don't know. And that means we need to design an experiment. And what this does is that it makes differing opinions, rather than being a stalemate. I think A, no, I think B. Oh, what can we do? Nothing. Basically, if person A says, I'm sure that we need glass to exude the quality we want in this device, another person says, no, I don't think so, we don't need glass. And we don't have data to prove any of those sides. It's a we don't know. And that means we define that experiment. Of course, as cheap as possible and as quick as possible to find out and invalidate. You see, and all of a sudden, real life experiments are part of the strategy work and have a feedback loop into the ongoing strategic process. Oh my God, how cool. Okay, here's how the book frames bad strategy. One, strategy is a vision. No, strategy is not a vision. It has a vision. Vision is an integral part of a strategy, but it's not everything. Strategy as a plan. Yeah, strategy might have a plan, but the plan is not a strategy. There's more to it. Number three, denying that long-term or even mid-term strategy is possible in their context. It's always possible, it's always required. Number four, optimization of the status quo. Optimization is not a strategy. And five, following best practices strategy. It's also like, it might be part in very specific parts of your business, but it's not a strategy. Okay, so after we've been all over this, would I recommend Play to Win and who should buy this? It totally fulfilled my requirements and I love it for what it is. It's a framework only, so it doesn't fulfill all the needs, of course. So you need to bring in a couple of tools, strategic standard tools that you might plug in there. But the nice part is bring your own tools with you and it will all be fine. What Play to Win has brought to me is the understanding of strategy as an emergent and iterative process across all levels of a company, from vision or markers, as I call it, over options to the actual work being done. It refutes a plan or a vision or any of those parts of the whole thing being a strategy, but it calls for a framework, a process, and a method to be integrated as a whole from the high-level abstract ideas to the very concrete work. So that's cool to me. It glues everything together by making everything a set of deliberate decisions on the 5 very core questions. Is it still work? Hell yes. Is it still hard work? Times even more. Does it fulfill the promise of being more inclusive and less elite prone? Yes, and that's what I'm looking for. Democratization of strategy work. Everybody should be part of it. The company as a whole sensor system across all levels and the sensors being fed back into the strategy. All these levels being integral part of the experiments that need to be done. And does it thus make strategy more robust and fun? 100 times. So who should buy Play to Win? Maybe the exact box that I bought. Well, everybody who's interested in any aspect of the strategy work, really. And finally, if you want to know more, if you can always listen to my podcast. You can make sure to subscribe to my newsletter for now regular info from here on again, and also more info on education programs I'm planning to come up. So also, if you have an idea of another method or framework I should unbox for you, leave it in the comments. What's your experience with Play to Win or any other strategy framework or aspects of strategy? Again, leave in the comments. And see you.